The Watson Weekly podcast is sponsored by Avalara. For e-commerce brands, tax compliance gets more complicated with every new channel, state, product, and market. Avalara Agentic Tax and Compliance helps automate the work behind the scenes so merchants can deliver a smoother customer experience with accurate tax calculation at checkout, clearer visibility into tariffs and duties, and fewer surprises for customers when their order arrives. Avalara works with e-commerce platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, and more, helping teams manage compliance faster and scale with more confidence. To learn more about Avalara's e-commerce compliance solutions and explore resources built for growing e-commerce brands, go to avalara.watsonweekly.com for more details. It's August 17th, 2026, and this is the Watson Weekly, your essential e-commerce digest. Today on our show, Ryan Cohen hasn't given up on eBay yet. QVC cuts $5 billion in debt, not out of the woods. 2/3 of GLP-1 users quit in 6 months. Shein will become mostly a service business, which happens to be a retailer. And finally, the Investor Minute, which contains 5 items this week from the world of venture capital, acquisitions, and IPOs. But first, in our shopping cart full of news, Ryan Cohen wants eBay's board, not eBay. Ryan Cohen may be walking away from the biggest bid in GameStop's history. Bloomberg reported Monday, citing people familiar, that Cohen is weighing pulling the $56 billion offer for eBay and going after a partnership or a joint venture instead. Reuters carried the report and said it could not independently verify it, and neither company commented. In exchange for dropping the bid, GameStop would open roughly 1,600 US stores to eBay, pointed at trading cards and collectibles, where the margins are better. GameStop would also want seats on eBay's board. Duh. eBay rejected the unsolicited offer in May and called it neither credible nor attractive, as we've reported here. In July, GameStop disclosed a 9.8% stake, which puts it amongst eBay's largest holders. That's interesting. Cohen said he would get a deal done one way or the other. On Monday, GameStop traded up 1.6% and eBay traded down 2.2%. The board seats, though, have nothing to do with the stores. You don't need a board seat to put an authentication desk in a mall. Retail partnerships get signed every week or two by 2 vice presidents, a legal team. No one asked for corporate governance seats. The real position is the 9.8% stake in the board seats. That gives Cohen leverage. The retail logic underneath it isn't nonsense, actually. eBay's collectible business has a physical problem it's been throwing money at for years. Everything from vaulting to authenticity guarantees, because 2 strangers shipping a graded card across the country need someone in the middle they both trust. GameStop has leases and staff already trading used goods over a counter. Those pieces do fit well enough to at least survive a first meeting where the 2 sides ask, what would have to be true if? Our second story, QVC cuts $5 billion in debt. Still not out of the woods. QVC Group is out of Chapter 11 with more than $5 billion less debt and a CEO who already had the job once. Debt's down by over $5 billion, and there's a new $600 million asset-based lending facility behind the operating business. The former CEO, David Rawlinson, is out. Mike George, who ran the company for close to 16 years back when it was Curate, steps in as interim chief executive officer and board chair. The stock is approved to trade on NASDAQ. The company pointed to cord-cutting and changing shopping habits as what eroded their cash flow. Let's just say that the board of directors they named tells you a lot. One of the 8 seats went to a former managing director at Silver Point Capital. Creditors took equity in the restructuring, and the equity obviously takes board seats. That's how these end. It does set a clock, however. Money that converts debt into ownership is usually looking at a sale or a turnaround measured in a few years, and it won't sit through a long rebuild. The rest of the names do skew financial. A former CFO of Walmart International sits next to a former CFO of Pixar, alongside 2 operators out of specialty retail that's been through their own troubles, Michaels and David's Bridal. Then there is Nicolas de la Bourgeois, who helped build TikTok Shop and spent years at Amazon before that. Nicolas's seat is the one that isn't about the balance sheet. QVC is saying it wants to compete in, wait for it, live commerce on platforms it does not own. Paging whatnot, pick up the red phone. Paging whatnot, please pick up the red phone. The bankruptcy fixed the balance sheet and left the hard part alone. QVC has been selling merchandise on live video since like 1986 and is very good at it. It's trouble where video goes. The cable bundle worked like a shelf for QVC. They rented premium position on that shelf for decades and paid the freight to actually hold that spot. Of course, that shelf has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller every quarter. On TikTok or YouTube, there's no reserved position. You bid for every impression against somebody with a ring light, and the platform keeps the customer relationship. Hello, YouTube, my old friend. $5 billion in debt relief does buy time, but I'm not sure it buys you an audience. Our third story. 2/3 of GLP-1 users quit in 6 months, and grocers are planning like they won't. 22% of US households now include someone currently taking a GLP-1. Numerator measured half that in October 2023. The firm's latest quarterly tracker pulled more than 95,000 responses. GLP-1 households spend almost 4% less at the grocery store, comparable non-using households after a year on the medication. Those same households control north of $660 billion in spending across CPG, general merchandise, and quick service restaurants. While 4% is a rounding error on a lot of businesses, in grocery, where operators are fighting for margin in the low single digits, it comes out of the part of the P&L that actually funds everything else. Numerator also says that these baskets are pulling away from, wait for it, pantry staples and what it calls carb-centric items like pasta and bakery, the middle of the store where the margin lives and where most of the trade spend agreements actually sit. Spending did go up in protein, seafood, fiber, and functional nutrition, and outside the food aisles entirely in fragrance, skincare, and supplements. A shopper eating less can still ring the same total. In other words, the shopper is putting it towards how she looks. Nearly 2/3 of former GLP-1 users stopped inside of 6 months. 2/3. Numerator's own read of that figure is the market is still largely shaped by recent adopters, and another 23% of consumers said they consider starting. Does this change or keep happening is a question that will determine if GLP-1's future and its follow-ons are the new normal or just a flash in the pan like so many Beanie Babies. And our last story. Shein said the loophole didn't matter, but the IPO filing says otherwise. Shein filed for its Hong Kong IPO, and the filing itself is an admission. For years, the company argued the de minimis exemption wasn't why it won. Small batch inventory, tech-driven supply chain, that was the official story. The prospectus, though, tells it differently. Since May 2025, it's been passing the majority of added tariff costs to American shoppers through higher prices, and, surprise and shock, it's absorbed a negative impact on US revenue across the rest of that year. Wow, somebody draw me a map to understand this one. The numbers, all from the filing, US revenue down more than 3% between 2024 and 2025. First quarter US sales down 14% against the year before. Company-wide profit down 39%. And in the first quarter, Shein swung a $99 million loss against $395 million in profit a year earlier. Duty rates went from a range of 0 to 62.5% to a range of 10 to 87.5%. Ouch. But actually, I think Europe is the more important story. This is Shein's largest market. 35% of 2025 revenue. Growth there has already decelerated from 33% down to about 9%. And the first quarter came in at 2% growth. All of that happened before the EU killed its own €150 duty-free threshold in July and replaced it with a flat €3 charge per product category in a shipment. And then, of course, Shein had its own risk disclosure. European trends could come in line with the US drop or exceed it. Angela Lee at Columbia Business School told CNBC that price isn't a durable advantage. Duh. You can either trade on trust or you can trade on price. If you lose the cheapest slot and the consumer is gone the same week because nothing else was holding them there, you are, my friend, in big trouble. So the answer in the filing is that Shein needs to sell the factory instead of the dress. Hello, service revenue, my old friend. Services revenue at Shein grew 40% last year. FBA and AWS, please pick up the red phone. FBA and AWS, please pick up the red phone. It's hard to be a retailer. It's a heck of a lot easier to be a service provider. Love those gross margins. The piece worth watching for me is Shein calls brand enablement renting its supply chain and product infrastructure out to other brands. About 1% of revenue today. Operating margin on it runs roughly twice the company average. Shein says one partner grew sales 15 times in its second year, while operating margin improved 30 points and inventory days fell by 2/3. These simple statements, in my mind, will dominate the future of Shein if indeed it has a future. The question is existential. It's that time, friends, for our Investor Minute. We have 5 items on the menu today. First, Nielsen would acquire Double Verify in an all-cash transaction for $13.60 per share, or an enterprise value of $2.15 billion. Sounds like they need access to more data. Story 2. Whatnot announced $545 million in Series G funding round, valuing the company at a reported $20 billion valuation. Series G for better go public. Live stream shopping finally having its moment. Story 3. Washwise, a clothing care startup, raised $1.2 million in pre-seed funding. Are we reinventing laundry? Rent the runway, pick up the blue phone. Story 4. Gravity, an automated agent-to-agent advertising platform, raised $30.5 million in Series A funding. Agentic advertising? I thought no advertising would be part of the agentic world. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And finally, Vibe IQ, a product lifecycle management platform, raised $22.5 million in growth funding that will be invested in product development and team growth. I hope they vibe code their own products. That's all for this week. Till next time, Watsonians. Hi, I'm Rick Watson, CEO and founder of RMW Commerce Consulting and host of the Watson Weekly podcast, your essential e-commerce digest. I write a newsletter you can subscribe to at watsonweekly.com, and you can find the podcast at the same location.